Hey, it's Soul, and welcome back to Warcraft Weekly. And it's better late than never. World of Warcraft Dragonflight is one step closer to launch with an official pre-order and pre-order bonuses and the usual, the rhetoric of, hey, you shouldn't ever pre-order, you're only encouraging heinous practices from the billion-dollar industry, and, well, I guess also you should spend your money however you damn well please. And speaking of please, if you could, like the video, subscribe for more common sense, copium-filled content, and we're already on the subject. Dragonflight pre-orders are up, and we have to break down how you might be spending your money because, well, there are a handful of ways to do it. There's also a bunch of other digital sales going on. There's too many to list, and I suggest just checking out the store when you've got a minute. So for Dragonflight, there's the base expansion, there's a heroic and an epic bundle, and there's a digital complete collection, which also has its own heroic and epic edition. To top it all off, there's also a physical collector's edition, and now let's kind of break down everything inside. The base game is $50, which is kind of... yeah. The price bumped back up from Battle for Azeroth's base version, which cost $40. Now, some folks might remember how the likes of Warlords of Draenor and Legion also cost $50, but at least those included a character boost to get folks closer to the action. Shadowlands was the first expansion to have 3 versions of the game, offering the base game at this $40 price point without the character boost. But hey, you get a pet for pre-ordering any version of the game. There's no way of knowing one way or another if Drax, the name of the pet, will be sold on the store later on, which makes it feel like Blizzard forced the pet to force the price bump. So wow, I'm thrilled over that one. The heroic and epic bundles of Dragonflight are also naturally more expensive than Shadowlands were, but there's a certain value added with a bunch of digital goods to come with them. The heroic and the epic editions do include a character boost to level 60. You get this gnarly looking dragon with wooden feet and branches for horns and a pinecone tail, very cute. And there's a Mirka Straza pet. The Epic Edition includes all that I mentioned, plus a Hearthstone effect toy, whoop-de-doo, a helmet transmog that doesn't really match with almost anything that plate wearers use, a set of transmog wings with 5 colors, again doesn't match very well with anything, but oh well, and an additional month of game time. So my advice, it's your money, do what you want. Now if you're stingy, but you still want to pre-order, I'd say just get the base game and then wait for a sale or a separate digital collector's edition bundle because you know it's gonna come. Now I hate to shill, I'm gonna shill. I hate to shill, but the best value for you is going to be in the Epic Edition. If you're interested in some of the cosmetics, consider that the Epic Edition is $20 more, but it does include a free month of game time, which makes the Epic Edition a pretty good value compared to the heroic one. The complete collection, the digital complete collection, this is way too many SKUs, come on. It's kind of like buying both the epic bundles of Shadowlands and Dragonflight all at once, with all the transmog, the extra boost, and even more game time. Now, I can't tell if, like other bundles, like the pet and mount bundles, does the price change depending on how much of what you already own from this bundle, because I already have it all, I couldn't really see anything. Yeah, I have it all, and I have no shame either. And finally, the Dragonflight Collector's Edition comes with all of the Dragonflight things that I talked about earlier, as well as physical stuff like pins, an art book, a mousepad mat thing for your friends to see and be like, oh, so that's what you're into. And a box. Okay, it's probably an envelope with game time in it, I'm guessing. A lot of the conversation this week has been on the small notation that Dragonflight will release no later than the end of 2022, which is both surprising and not surprising, because at the beginning of this year, many talking heads, including yours truly, predicted a 2022 release. Understandably, news of a 9.2.5 patch and a Season 4 would throw a huge wrench in things, right? And it would cause some serious doubt. Because we can look back on how long previous seasons and the expansion lulls were, and collectively, kind of as a hive mind, we created this narrative that with another minor patch and a straight up season of content, there's no way that Dragonflight can launch until a few months into 2023. And yet, the WoW team has dropped hints here and there. We're pretty far along with the expansion, they said. We've got a lot done, they said. Season 4 is going to be a short season, they said. And throughout the week, I've talked about this. I've even modeled a scenario where, yes, Dragonflight can have a solid launch in the earlier half of December. Now, counterpoint, the Dragonflight reveal was less show and more tell. Like, we're used to seeing a ton of artwork and models, and in the case of the Drakthir Evoker, like sample descriptions of class and racial abilities. And if this reveal was at a BlizzCon, rest in peace, we would have playtests and impressions to share. And on top of that, well, our last expansion was Shadowlands. It was an expansion that was delayed and it still had problems. It needed like an earlier 0.5 patch and it still had problems. You'd think that they would have learned one expansion later, right? So it's easy to be a skeptic and to presume that they're trying to squeeze an expansion out every 2 years. It sounds reasonable to try to do that, but it's kind of bit them in the ass before. So I'm totally with you folks who prefer that they wait. Like, let Season 4 be a fuller season and let the team take their time for Dragonflight. I also gotta ask though, is the WoW team taking a big risk at repeating history as we're kind of thinking, or are they confident and we just don't know it? Or perhaps they're actually listening to feedback. So this is going to sound very tinfoil. It's going to sound a little bit cynical, maybe a lot of copium, whatever, all the same. But you're in this deep, so let's dive into this. So I guesstimated that the season right now, Season 3, would last for like almost 6 months. That means Season 4 of Shadowlands would start September 6th. Again, this is just me making speculation here. Now, if the WoW team does want to launch Dragonflight this year, it's going to be no later than December 12th and 13th with respect to the holiday season, and then we'd have 3 weeks instead of 3 weeks to enjoy the base game before Season 1 begins at the start of 2023, assuming the planet even lasts that long. That means Season 4 of Shadowlands will be only about 3 months long. It's going to be the same as a PvP season back during Legion, so this is not entirely unfamiliar territory. What the WoW team did here, whether they planned it or not, was to potentially leave 3 months of flexibility for themselves. Let me explain. If Dragonflight does launch in 2022, cool. They met street date, congratulations. Just in time for the holidays, and it fits just about every narrative. An expansion that's more focused on evergreen systems like world content and professions and talents, fewer experiments, which include the dragon writing that's going to be there, but nothing else. They're holding information, like Drakthir Evokers, a little bit closer to the chest. They're maybe managing expectations by a little bit of under-promising, revealing less information earlier than it should. But how bad would it be if the release is pushed back to 2023, whether it's planned or not? Now, surely those who want a refund should be entitled to it. Easy. But no one in their right mind really thinks that Blizzard is just going to, let's just cancel a WoW expansion and run off with all the money. No, it's going to come. Instead, I think the worst case scenario would be that Season 4 turns out to be just as long, maybe longer, than a regular season. Which is bad, right? It would mean that the Zereth Mortis and Sepulchral Raid are basically a year-long tier, if we were to count this in tiers instead of seasons. This would put Shadowlands right up there with Warlords of Draenor and Mists of Pandaria as some of the longest waits for a new expansion. But to the team's credit, this does still fit the narrative of other WoW fans who prefer that the team takes their time making sure that Dragonflight has a solid release. Now, there's a lot that we don't know. Again, it's them, I guess, managing expectations. There have been reactions to the premise, the very premise of dragon writing, that it's probably not going to be a hit for everyone, so there's time to come up with a different game plan or some sort of shift. Talents are what the balancing of borrowed power has been during all of Legion, all of BFA, and all of Shadowlands, and that's all being crammed into the 10.0, the pre-patch, so that's gotta be a banger. Professions, meanwhile, are getting tons of attention and are expected to compete with the big three, organized raids and dungeons and PvP at a somewhat even level. Of course, there's the big three itself, and then there's outdoor world content, which we hope makes a strong presence over the world quest hopping that we've been doing for a couple of years now. Even without borrowed power or a game mode like Warfront or Torghast, Dragonflight is still going to be a big expansion, and there's a strong sentiment from people that they'd rather wait. World of Warcraft is still a big game, and there's plenty to do in it if you look. Meanwhile, Wrath of the Lich King Classic is more than likely releasing before Dragonflight, so we have time to poke around there for a while. And there are other games like Earth Defense Force 6 is coming out later this year, Now, why I mentioned such a random game? It's because I'm a sucker for it, man, and well, look, there's just tons of other games to play. Speaking just for myself here, I am patient. I can put up with a longer Season 4 and a few more rounds of getting choked by Daddy D. So I'd rather wait. I'd rather see the WoW team work out the Dragonflight kinks during the beta as opposed to the 10.0 or the 10.1. My enjoyment of World of Warcraft is a bit less over how fast stuff comes out, but more like how much am I enjoying the stuff that I'm doing right now. It's not an either or, it's both, but I would like to see the team exercise, I guess, a little bit more patience if it's required. But now I leave it to you folks. Would you prefer a 2022 release, maybe later? Or are you being reasonable? Are you waiting to check out the alpha and the beta coverage before deciding yourself? Say hello and leave a comment. Our attention now turns to Wrath of the Lich King Classic because, as said, it's pretty much a certainty that it'll release before Dragonflight, and so we might as well give it some attention. The beta opened up this week and I hopped in with well, focused purpose, which was to see what's all the hubbub with the lack of a dungeon finder and the thing that Wrath Classic players are going to get instead. So it's basically an upgrade to the LFG tool from that era to give it a little bit more of a modern, polished feel. Now, I have a confession to make, right? Back in the day,
you wrote a book of poems for the girl you like, and then you gave it to another girl, hoping that she would give it to the girl you liked.
That's not it.
Oh.
Anyway, the real confession, I never used the LFG channel tool thing. I didn't even know how to open the panel, actually. Like back then, it was trade chat and my guild chat, and that was pretty much it. So I'm speaking from pure ignorance here, but this tool, it seems pretty legit, right? Like it's sort of like the pre-made group tool where you run a search, sort of, based on your preferences from this here pull-down menu. You find a group and you're pretty much good to go. Or you post yourself out there. What are your preferences? And you post yourself on this browser and then go about your business while hoping that someone wants you in. Now, I get that it is obviously less convenient than the good old dungeon finder. I mean, that's super efficient for the game to facilitate the group for you and then instantly teleport you and everyone into the dungeon and then back to where you started. But also keep in mind, back in the day, there were a lot of people who really didn't like the dungeon finder, so hear me out. The Classic team could always just add the dungeon finder in a later phase of Wrath Classic, just like how it was added later in the original. From an observer standpoint, I'd say it's better to resist going the dungeon finder route for as long as they can until the sentiment really starts showing, not just on social media posts, but in their own data. Because once that dungeon finder is added, that's a door that's opening a door that can't be closed. Someone in Twitch chat actually pointed out to me, though, one of the big benefits of the Dungeon Finder was the opportunity to keep running heroic dungeons, which normally have a daily lockout. No Dungeon Finder means no daily heroic, or the bits of rewards that come from that, so those concerns will need to have a solution. And on a side note, about this whole group finder thingamajigger, this group tool would be super cool if it was incorporated into the modern game as kind of a supplement to the guild finder tool. Now, I talked about this years ago, and pretty much here it is. Using this tool, an individual can post themselves onto this list, like, hey, I'm looking for a guild, look me up on the armory, here's my Raider IO score, or whatever. And guilds who are looking for new recruits don't have to guild spam, they can just browse, looking for potential candidates. Same as how people can seek guilds to apply to. And now the side note is over, I just think that would be really cool. So other big changes are coming to the way gearing works in Wrath Classic as well. As we played through Wrath, there were different sorts of emblems introduced from tier to tier. Instead of having so many currencies, there are just going to be raid tokens and dungeon tokens used to buy the appropriate gear. What's got some folks worried can be sort of read from this statement, where they say we, the team, are exploring plans to add challenges to heroic dungeons as the expansion proceeds, which would also provide more valuable rewards. This is something that was never addressed back in the day. Dungeon difficulty stagnated while the rewards, namely badges, were still valuable. Now there was a bit of a dust-up on social media, worries that the team could be adding something like Mythic Plus in order to keep the dungeons relevant. Earlier I mentioned that without a dungeon finder, heroics would be only run once a day. And if that doesn't change, what if this extra challenge is something like the weekly raid challenge quests found in Dalaran, where you gotta defeat a certain boss in a dungeon for an extra reward? Or if you kind of remember, I barely remember, in Icecrown Citadel, there was a sort of special mob that was right before the gunship battle that we didn't exactly have to kill, but we did it anyway for, I think, some badges or emblems or some other goodies. So maybe mobs like those could be added to heroic dungeons for a rewarding, a challenging, but also an optional adventure. I'd like to hear your thoughts on what they can do to keep Wrath dungeons feeling good to play, because when I did far them regularly, but in hindsight, I can't exactly say that I found it very fun or engaging after a few months. Really, it's like me farming for artifact power or whatever today. Like, you did it because there wasn't much else to do. And that's the show. And that's the end. For Rygolon, that is.
Oh,
kill
no.
it. Kill it or else. Kill it or else.
For the
Yeah!
Oh my god.
So all that stands before us is La Jailer. It's gonna be good. We're killing it. I can feel it.
I see main.
I see Annie.
Main,
Watch for green shit, guys. Don't get
Arth.
And I see
green
Arth.
shit, green shit.
Main and
I
Arth.
see main,
What did I say?
and I see Arth.
Bye, mouse.
Oh shit.
You got bumped off.
That was good. We are never going to kill it. We're not done with the raid, but this definitely has been the toughest raid for me and my team in a really, really long time, and this is after all of the nerfs. Part of the process of raiding with a team and leading that team is that there are times where you just can't take everyone with you. You gotta leave some folks behind. Now for me, it's a pretty extreme circumstance when a few folks just aren't doing enough damage, or someone just keeps standing in fire. And I get that gamers have gotten more sophisticated, and encounter design has had to follow that, pretty carefully. Like, let's not forget how much this raid needed to be nerfed over the past however many months. I don't really have a call to action for this one here. I just want to share that it sucks. It really sucks to tell someone who's taking their time out of their schedule to try and improve and perform better, and then take their usual time out to play with you. And you need to tell them, hey, I gotta ask you to step out. Now, they understand that, if they leave the 10 or 20 other people, they're gonna get a win. And that's what happened the other night. But I can't help but imagine how I'd feel if my best efforts that night weren't enough. And then I come back to me, and then I wonder, where in all that did I, as the leader, where did I fail? Because I allowed someone to feel that way. But then there's always Earth Defense Force. So let's give thanks to the wonderful Twitch subscribers who continue to visit and say hi. A quick shout out to Taliesin, actually, for being kind enough to send his folks over to my channel, or I don't know, maybe it's an act of punishment or cruelty to them, or maybe I'm the only other channel in his friend list streaming at the time, or maybe I need to work on my confidence. Yeah, there we go. To the wonderful patrons who continue supporting me when times are tough, thank you so much. And to you, viewer, I'm grateful you made it to the end. Let's hope for some more Dragonflight news next week, but before you go, like the video, subscribe for more content, and I will see you next week. Until then, stay safe, stay healthy. And now you're at the back of the video. You knew this was gonna come, and if you keep watching, it's totally your fault. You have less than 5 seconds, okay? Here in the United States, we are burying children who had their heads blown off and bodies mutilated by assault weapons while they were at school. We've got people calling for more gun rights, and fewer women's rights, fewer privacy rights, there's this permeating phrase called pro-life. It's meant to protect the rights of the unborn. But there's almost nothing from them to support them after they're born. Like, where's maternity leave? Where's decent and affordable health care? Why does the pro-life movement end when the child is born? And what's pro-life if I have to worry about my niece and nephew's schools maybe getting shot up? I'll get this. I'll get through this. My body, my choice. I said that like a couple weeklies ago. And I believe in that. My body, my choice. I believe in that for vaccines and masks, believe it or not. I double vaxxed. I boosted. I might get another one. I don't know. I know people who didn't, but I'm not going to push my beliefs or whatever on them, just like I'm going to resist their trying to push theirs on me. You know, we still get along. We're just not going to meet up in person. Or I'll quietly mask up and I'll politely ask them to, you know, not mind my appearance. We just try to respect each other. That's all. And yeah, my body, my choice. I believe in that for abortion and contraception too. And some would say that abortion is literal murder. I'm no authority on it. And I'm glad that the debate around that subject rages on with people who are more qualified to speak on that than I am. But I'd like to think that factually, abortion is a private decision of the woman, preferably alongside a doctor, right? And something that is straight up none of our business to ever know about in the first place. The circumstances aren't important. Again, not our business. And so we live in interesting times when people are empowered to conceal carry firearms, when women have to leave their state for medical treatment, and where companies make it like a value proposition to work for them because we offer benefits for women's and transgender services. Yeah, so apparently in 2022's America, that's freedom. Stay breezy.